Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this month's edition of Couch Coding, Bending Behat's Benefits. Your experts for today are Steve Persch and Tessa Kriesel, also here at Pantheon. Just a few housekeeping items to go over before we start. Please make sure you submit any questions you have during the presentation in the question window. We want to answer as many of your questions as possible, so please keep those coming. Also, the session will be recorded, and the recording will be made available to everyone next week. I'd now like to turn it over to Steve and Tessa.
Hello, Steve Persch here, Agency and Community Engineer, talking about Behat. Behat is a tool for behavior-driven development. It can do behavioral testing of just about any type of website. We'll be taking a look at Drupal and WordPress specific integration. Before I dive in, Tessa, can you introduce yourself as well and say hi to everybody?
Hi, Tessa Kriesel here, Agency and Community Engineer as well with Steve. Get to do a lot of really awesome things, including learning Behat.
Yeah, so some of the slides I have here are a shorter version of what I was presenting at DrupalCon this year. So we'll start by taking a look at Drupal, and then we'll turn things over to Tessa and take a look at a WordPress site as well. So before I get into the slides, let's just take a look at a simple Drupal site here. I've got a Drupal site running on Pantheon. I happen to be on a multi-dev environment, and the thing I really want to highlight is this Who's New block. It's a block that just comes with normal Drupal core, a listing of the users that are new on the site. Some that were manually created, like the admin users, and then some of these throwaway test accounts. We'll see how those are getting created in just a minute here. So I've got a Drupal site. Locally, I've got all my Drupal code checked out, and I've got some tests, some files here that are specific to Behat tests. And what I want to do is just run my Behat test that's going to verify the behavior of the Who's New block. So I've got two scenarios, as they're called here, and I'll talk a little bit more later about exactly what scenarios do. But basically, I'll just run them and we can see what's happening. So I'm running this Behat script, referencing it from the vendor directory in my Drupal 8 site, pointing it at a config file, and then pointing it at specifically at that Who's New.feature file. And it's running pretty fast already. So already the first scenario has completed. It logged in as an administrator. It went to admin/people/create. It filled out that form for making a new account, visited the home page, and then looked for test account 1 in this exact CSS selector. So Tessa, I'm guessing you can follow what's happening here. It's pretty developer friendly, I think. Like we're just specifying HTML interaction. Yeah.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. It's something that I can pick up on and be able to read easily.
Mm-hmm. But would you want to show that to a client?
Nah, I don't think so.
Yeah. I don't think so either. I think if I showed this to a client, they would say, I don't know what to make of this CSS selector. This is obviously not for me. But the second scenario, doing basically the same thing, has some custom written steps that says, given I log in as administrator and a new user account has recently been created. So wrapping up all that user creation logic just into one step, going to the home page, and then rather saying the exact CSS selector, saying no, just is the new username in the Who's New block. So I'd be comfortable showing the second one to one of my clients. So I'll talk about why you might want to show these to your clients, but I may have gone too fast already here. Let's just talk. What is Behat? What just happened? We saw a test run, but what was actually happening there? We've got Behat. That's a command line application. So you saw me run a command line command there that's executing PHP. Behat really is its own standalone application. It interacts with websites usually. You can use it to test things other than websites, but mainly it's interacting with websites like Drupal and WordPress. And you saw that .feature file that just explained what the behavior was that was supposed to happen. So Behat is a command line application. It's reading these .feature files that say what's supposed to happen, and it's interacting with a Drupal or WordPress site to verify what's expected. And these three components, conceptually, you'd find these in any kind of automated test. To have an automated test, you need something that says what's supposed to happen. That's what these .feature files are. They're saying what's supposed to happen. We're supposed to see those new users in the who's new block. We need some form of reality. We need a real site that we can check against, and we need some way to compare the two. So on a conceptual level, that's what an automated test is doing. It's a way of saying, here's what I expect, here's some way of checking if that really does exist, and then a means of comparison. So why would you do this? Well, why would you use any automated test? Tessa, when you think about automated tests, you might think about CI. It seems to be something everybody's talking about these days, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So Steve, for those of you who aren't using CI, like what exactly is this showing us here?
So the way I like to think about development, the workflow that I got into before I came over to Pantheon, I like to think about it like every change going through a pull request. So I've got this Drupal 8 site running on Pantheon. The code lives on GitHub. I've got this in like a personal GitHub repo, and I've made a pull request that's putting that who's new block onto the site. Here's the whole set of Drupal 8 code, but here's the pull request. And when I make a pull request saying like, here's a change that I want to make, I want something to tell me, did I break anything? And that's the basic idea of what this green check mark is telling me here, that I didn't break anything. To quote another one of our colleagues, Michelle Krejci, there are other reasons to test. We can define done through tests. By writing tests, we can know when our features are complete. This can help us focus. It can be a form of documentation. And then, yeah, we do get this regression testing. So by having these check marks every time you submit a pull request, it's a way of verifying, did I break anything? Everything that was working yesterday, is it still working today, even with these changes? So the two main benefits that I want to highlight with Behat here are automation, the fact that you can just run them over and over again, run them on every single pull request, run them on every single git commit, whatever you want to do, and then also clarity. The idea here is that anyone on the project should be able to read this and have a sense of what's going on. But of course, that isn't always the case. That's not the case on every website build out there, that everyone has a clear picture of what's going on. So who cares about websites at all? To speak in really broad generalities, you often have the people building the websites, either internal web development teams or agencies. This is where I spent most of my career, and Tessa spent most of her career as well, making websites with teams like this. And then you've got the people who use the site. You've got your main client, your main point of contact. They have internal stakeholders, and then there are the end customers who actually use the site. So Tessa, does this look like the way a lot of your projects works, where every single set of people is separate? You've got stakeholders talking to the product owner. The product owner describes what they want to a tech lead or business analyst on the web development team, hand off requirements to a project manager. Project manager makes a bunch of tickets, hands those to developers, who then do the work, hand them off to a QA team, who then deploys them. And we've got silos here across the board. This is the way a lot of projects I worked on looked like. How about you, Tessa?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And of course, nobody talks to anyone else.
Right. Why would you? I have tickets coming in that tell me what it's supposed to do. There are a lot of bullet points. There's no way I could misinterpret a bunch of bullet points, right? Well, misunderstandings happen all the time when you've got silos like this. So the behavior-driven development community that Behat is a part of would encourage you to have at least one conversation with everybody who cares about the website, at least once in the course of the project. Get everyone together and set some common expectations for what is it that you're building. And if you do this, if you just write out in plain English what it is that you're going to build in a way that everyone can understand it, then everybody can take ownership. If the way you test your site, if the way you document what's supposed to happen isn't readable to your end customer, isn't readable to your main point of contact at your client, then they're going to remove themselves from that area of responsibility. They'll think, I already told the architect everything that I expect. If it comes out wrong, that's their fault. But if we write down what we're going to do in plain English, like these feature files do, gives everyone a chance to at least join in the conversation and track what's being done. So we should be able to look at one of these feature files and know what that conversation looked like. The top here is just telling us, what is the thing that we're talking about. We're talking about the who's new block. Below that, we just have a reason that we're building it. We're building it so that administrators can see newly created users. They want a listing on the home page. And then this scenario here, this is the actual machine executable part. Every single one of these lines is machine executable, given that's just where we're starting from, when that's an action being taken by the user role in question, by the person in question, the administrator is going to the home page. Then they get some observable result. Then they see a new user name in the who's new block. Ideally, your main point of contact at your client could read this and give you meaningful feedback. Maybe they would say, oh, actually, no, we don't want new users on the home page. Just give us a big administrative listing, or just email us every time new users sign up, or a daily digest of new users who have signed up. Those are the kinds of miscommunications that could happen and could get lost track of if you don't have one way of writing things down that everyone can read. I do just want to separate out some overlapping terms in the Behat world that I wish I understood earlier. I went probably at least a year of using Behat off and on before I fully had these terms separated out in my head. The contexts, drivers, and extensions, these vague nouns. Tessa, you've been looking at Behat for a little bit here. Do you feel like these nouns can be confusing?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Even diving in here, I still sometimes get a little bit confused. So the context files are how Behat understands those .feature files. Those feature files over here have all of these sentence fragments like and I visit admin/people create, or and I visit the homepage, things like that. Well, how does Behat understand that? Well, it has context files, these PHP classes that use annotations, just a special form of comments on these PHP methods that help translate between the plain text of given I am on / or given I am on the home page, translate that plain text into PHP. So all that's happening when you say given I'm on the home page is we call this method visit /, and that takes us to the home page. But when I first saw this, I thought it can't really be that simple. And that's where the drivers come in. So the drivers are basically one layer of abstraction down. The contexts take you from plain text into the PHP world, and then these drivers do much more of the heavy lifting. So the main driver to be aware of are the various Mink drivers. Basically, this is just a way of simulating browser interaction, visiting URLs, clicking the forward and back button, session management, and some of these are bare bones. They don't handle JavaScript at all, and they can run really fast. Other implementations of the driver can handle JavaScript and run a little bit slower. So extensions are our third vague noun. You can think of those like modules in the Drupal space or plugins in the WordPress world. So in Drupal, we say there's a module for that. In WordPress, there's an extension or a plugin for that. Behat, it's extension. So if the thing you want to check is SEO, there's an extension for that. If the thing you want to do is take screenshots anytime a test fails, there's an extension for that. If you want to test REST APIs, there are a whole bunch of extensions for testing REST APIs, and then a Drupal extension, a WordPress extension, a Symfony extension, and so on. So Tessa, if you were interested in Behat, when do you think you would use it?
Well, that depends on the team that I'm with and how organized they are.
Exactly.
But I would hope in the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, in the ideal world, you just do this from the beginning. Like, you write down exactly what your project is going to be, everyone understands it, and you just write tests for everything, 100% test coverage. That's the dream, right? I don't know if you can expect that. Quoting myself here, there's a lot of overlap between the behavior-driven development community that Behat is a part of and the agile methodologies community. At DrupalCon Dublin last year, I talked about how I think it's kind of odd that a lot of agencies I've seen try to adopt agile methodologies all at once, when agile methodologies are all about taking baby steps in the right direction. I think you've got to apply similar thinking with automated testing. I don't expect any team out there to go from never doing any kind of automated testing to 100% test coverage of everything with perfectly written Behat steps. So that's really why I called this presentation Bending Behat's Benefits, because you're going to have to bend on one of those benefits just in order to get started. If in the ideal world you get a very clear definition of done and you get automatic execution from Behat, I think just to get started you're going to have to pick which of these is more important and bend on the other one. So you prioritize one, bend on the other. Dan North, the guy who coined the term behavior-driven development, he would say it's more important to have a clear definition of done. Tessa, have you ever told your client that you finished something only to have them tell you that it was totally wrong and not at all what they expected?
Sadly, yes.
Would it have helped you to have had an automated test that checked your understanding of it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, checked your understanding of it or checked the client's understanding of it?
Probably more so the client, because I know what's in my head. They don't know what's in my head.
Right. So it's important to get that clear definition of done that you can show to your client and have them understand what's expected. So demo-driven development is what we called this at my last job. Basically, anytime we would take on a new ticket, it was a good idea to just write down in advance how are you going to show a client that this thing is done. And if we take that example of this new users block, maybe I'll sign in as an admin user, I'll make a new testing account, I'll click on the home page, and I'll point out that the new testing username is in the who's new block. It would take me like 30 seconds or a minute to just write this out. And if I write this out ahead of time, that gives me in advance a clear picture of how I know that I'm done. I could be able to hand off that pull request to a coworker, have them look at this demo script, try it out, try making a new admin or signing in as an admin user, making a testing user and seeing if it shows up. And then we could actually use that for our client. And we could, if we were ambitious, even just show this to our client ahead of time and say, like, this is how we'll know that this is done. And then you can pick and choose if you want to translate these all the way into Behat tests that are fully automated. If, on the other hand, you decide that automated tests are more important than a clear definition of done, I would recommend making an automated test, a fully functioning Behat test for every bug fix. You know, some of the pushback I've heard on adopting automated testing at all is that it's too time-consuming to write automated tests. That if you're not familiar with automated testing in the first place, it could take longer to write the test than it could to write the feature being tested. So if that's your mindset, then yeah, you're probably not going to write an automated test for everything. But a bug fix, that's something that's already broken. That's something where you've already had a mismatch between what your client expected and what reality is. And at least in my experience, the the kinds of features that have one bug are the kinds of features that are likely to have 2 bugs or 3 bugs or 4 bugs. And I would rather have an automated test to verify that I'm not regressing, that I'm not introducing new bugs on a feature that's already been broken. Because I never like getting that email from a client saying, hey, that thing that was broken last week that you fixed is now broken again. That's, at least for me, that was one of the worst feelings of agency life. So that's the slides that I've got. Tessa, have we gotten any questions in so far?
Yeah, we did get one in right now, and that is there automated testing for visual regression in Behat as well?
I have not seen a combination of visual regression testing and Behat testing, but I suppose it's conceptually possible in that there's that extension for screenshotting, and a lot of what the team that Tessa and I are on have been working on this year is showing some examples of doing screenshot regression testing, and just to see a quick example there. So here's an example where basically on every pull request we get screenshots taken between a multi-dev environment where the pull request code lives and then some other Pantheon environment, and then you can overlay the two and see that there's in this case a significant visual difference between these two. I suppose conceptually it's possible to have Behat be the source of the screenshots, but in my opinion, you're probably better off just keeping those tests separate, having Behat do the behavior testing and have something like this backstop JS tool do the visual regression testing.
Awesome. Did we want to switch it over to Tessa now?
Sure.
Alrighty.
Awesome. Thanks, Steve. So probably the best part about my job here at Pantheon is that I get to dig into examples like this that Steve's talking about. And so I approached Steve because I wanted to dig into Behat and figure out how to get this all set up for WordPress sites. So Steve graciously walked me through an example, and now today, obviously, going through this couch coding. But Steve, here I'm looking at a Behat Pantheon, YAML file. Can you walk us through exactly what this is doing?
Yeah. So what we've got here is a composer repository for a WordPress site on your local machine. This was copied from our example WordPress composer site. So if anyone is interested in doing Composer and WordPress together, you can look at that example WordPress composer repository. Tessa, could you open up behat-pantheon.yaml as well? So in that repository, we're using this WordPress Behat extension. It comes with lots of contexts for doing things like testing WordPress specific behavior. But one of the things I wanted to show Tessa in that simple.yaml is just how small these Behat configurations can be. So here what we have is a simplified Behat configuration that's not loading the WordPress specific integration, but is still testing a WordPress site, because Behat can test really any website. Tessa, let's take a look at that site. Could you copy that base URL?
Yeah, I already have that site open actually.
Okay, so yeah, we've got a pretty vanilla WordPress site here running with the basic theme out of the box, and what we have in this Behat test is a way of testing comment behavior. So yeah, can you jump back over to PHP Storm? So on line 6 there, we've set the path that we want to test. In practice, you may want to test like a whole directory of dot feature files, but just for simplicity, we said, no, we only want to test comment dot feature. That's the only thing we want. And then we're getting our step definitions, our way of understanding that feature file from these two contexts on lines 8 and 9. Feature context, which is providing some custom steps, and then Mink context is providing just basic browser interaction. So let's take a look at that comment.feature file.
Yeah. So inside of the comment.feature file, we're looking at WordPress comments in general. So in here we have kind of in plain English breaking down exactly what we're hoping to do with it. So in order to engage in conversation on a site, visitors need to be able to make comments. So this first test that we're going through here is just saying that given I'm on this page, so we're looking at this post that we just saw on WordPress, I want to fill in a comment. I'm just going to say hello world, I want my name, my email, the website, all of the things you need to fill in a WordPress comment. And we're going to go ahead and post that, and then if that's successful, we should see a message that says that your comment is awaiting moderation. So we're actually going to run that and make sure that that works. So again, similar to what Steve's demo was doing, this is all working locally on my computer through Behat here and just running through, and it looks like this test passed.
And that ran really fast, Tessa.
I know, super fast. Thanks to Steve.
Yeah. Well, one of the reasons we did this simple .yaml is because both the Drupal and WordPress extension, in order to do things like logging in as administrative users, or to just do something like, say, given I have a post, or given I have a page, our examples show that interaction happening over an SSH connection to WP-CLI or to Drush in Drupal, and those just take a little while. So for demo purposes here, we're just working as an anonymous user trying to make a comment, and that runs a whole lot faster than connecting over SSH and calling WP-CLI commands.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
So, yeah,
we made a comment.
Yeah, we got a comment. So our comment was successful, our test passed. The world is all hunky-dory. If we come back over to our feature file here, we can see that I have a couple of other scenarios that are commented out. This second one is actually, well, here, let's actually run it first, and we'll see what we get. We run the test again. We actually get a failure this time. And so the second one is another way to kind of get over that hurdle for a failure. And so we're getting that because the comment already exists. There's already one with the same scenario because we have that same information in there. And if we go ahead and run that, this is going to give us a notification saying that it is a duplicate comment, and that's when we expect to see that. So we're getting the scenario here that duplicate comment was detected. I need to move on to that. So if we take a peek over at our feature context.php file, Steve had mentioned that this is where we can set up kind of custom configuration to be able to add a few things. And he so graciously set up a comment deleter down here. So if we have multiple comments of the same type so we can run these tests, it'll actually go through and delete the comment for us so that we can go through and run these tests continuously without any error. So if we go ahead and save that out, we should be able to run our test again, and this time we should see a success on the second one because the duplicate comment was detected. And again, our first one that is not including that is still showing us a failure, so we could remove that one and run with this second option here.
Yeah, so Tessa, could you run that Behat test one more time?
Yeah.
So I think we'll get all passes this time because we just uncommented that line that's basically doing cleanup for us after the scenario completes. So I think if we refresh this page, we'll see that those unapproved comments are now gone, and it's a good idea, I think, to clean up after these tests. But it's certainly not required. If you're running these tests against a multi-dev environment and you end up with a bunch of testing comments or a bunch of testing users there, I don't think that's a huge deal, but it's something that may confuse your clients. So at least take a look at how your site looks after these tests run. The Drupal WordPress extension, sorry, the Drupal Behat extension will do some cleanup after itself, deleting users or nodes that have been created during the course of the scenario. But you may not always be able to depend on that. So just take a look at what happened on your site after the scenario runs.
Absolutely. So if you're anything like me, if you like to keep things super clean and organized and easy to read, this last test is basically doing the same exact thing as the other tests, except for that it's much easier to read. So very simple. It's just saying that if I fill out the comment form, that I should see that my comment is awaiting moderation. And that can happen thanks to a helper that has been written over in this feature context file that Steve has put together here. When it's saying, if I fill in the comment form, it adds all of these different areas that we're specifically mentioning in the other feature, except including them all in one nice clean line. So go ahead and enabling that again, and if we run our test, we should get the same things back again. It's just a much cleaner way to look at that. And again, all of those pass for us. If we pop over here, again, we shouldn't see a comment because we've got the deleter that is deleting that comment after the fact, but knowing that the functionality is there. Steve, is there anything else you want to expand upon on this lovely WordPress test you helped me with?
Sure. If people wanted to know like what steps are available, let's take a look at how you can see like what's already there. Could you run the same command with -dl? This will give us a definition list.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So all these are coming from that Mink extension. Things like checking checkboxes, using the forward and back button, going to the home page, filling out form fields. Just basic browser interaction is all there for you. So I think our custom one is right there at the top, then I fill in the comment form. So we were able to write that custom step in not that many lines of code. So if you've got functionality that you want to do over and over again, like if we wanted to fully test everything related to comments, we probably would want to do something like test the administrative side of this and moderate some comments. So we'd have lots of scenarios that fill out the comment form, and it would be really helpful to have this custom step here that can just say in one line, fill out the comment form, rather than copying and pasting those 5 lines over and over again.
I am all about saving time.
Mm-hmm. Tessa, how do you feel about video games?
Well, when I have time, I actually really enjoy video games.
All right. One of the things I like about Behat is that you can get into a bit of a video game mindset. Could you jump back over to comment.feature?
Of course.
Really quick, guys. We have a question. Pokemon Go? Ooh. Are you guys in Pokemon Go? And does Behat apply to Pokemon Go?
I sadly was pretty obsessed with Pokemon Go in the beginning, but it got my children out of the house and walking around, so it was good.
Yeah, I never downloaded Pokemon Go myself, but I'd be fascinated to see if Pokemon Go could be tested with Behat. I don't know if it could.
Why not? I think you could.
Let's revolutionize
If I walked to the park and I saw a gym, I would begin to fight. I mean, lots of things you could do.
Oh, man.
Mm-hmm. So Tessa, let's imagine that our client says, I don't like the phrase, your comment is awaiting moderation. Can you change it to your comment is awaiting approval?
Of course.
So let's run that.
I know it's going to happen.
I think it's going to fail.
It is going to fail because that's not what WordPress tells us.
No. So if we were to write these steps in advance, the site doesn't say your comment is awaiting approval, but we have this feature file saying that's what I expect. So we've got red, and our task would be to change it to green. I don't think we should go hacking WordPress core right now to really change that line. But that's the mindset you can get into. And there's not just red and green. Let's change this line to something like, then I should see the message. Your comment is awaiting approval. So Behat doesn't know what we mean by then I should see the message. So we've got this intermediate step of yellow. So one of the things I like to do when I'm writing Behat tests is just write out a bunch of steps that I know aren't going to pass, like then I should see the message, because maybe that is my best understanding of what I'm supposed to do. Or maybe I haven't even thought about what exactly the message is, but I know that there's going to be a message, so I write in my Behat feature file here, then I should see the message. The option we're then presented with as developers is, do we want to write a custom step? If we do want to write a custom step, we can just copy paste what came out at the end of that command line string. Tessa, should we be bold and try and copy this over?
You have a lot of faith in my skills, don't you?
I do.
Famous last words.
Yes. Let's put it after this one. All right. What are we thinking we want here?
All right. I'm glad you're in PHP, Storm, because I think that's going to give us some autocomplete helping. Let's copy line 43.
43?
Yeah. And paste it in. Now we're not pressing a button, but we're looking for text. So I think if we delete press button and start typing the word assert, I think we're going to get some autocompletes telling us assert. I think we want assert text or something like that, or it contains text. There, page contains text.
Page contains text.
There we go. Now let's assert that it contains, what was it? Your comment is awaiting moderation. The one that's actually there.
Right here.
Yeah.
All right. Should we give it a try?
Let's try it.
Ooh, it's all green.
It's all green again.
That was.
we completed the video game.
Yes. Level complete.
You're all done for the day. Go home, guys.
All right. So Tusa, I think we've got like 20 minutes left over here.
Yeah.
Do we have any more questions?
I can jump to questions. Steve, I'm going to give that screen back over to you.
Okay.
So let's jump right in. Steve, I think this one is for you. It was in reference to your slides. Slide 19 specifically.
Oh, wow.
What is the difference between where and then on slide 19?
That is a good question. Well, I'll jump to that slide. The difference is purely conceptual. As far as Behat is concerned, it's just going to execute the things it's told to execute in order. So if I jump over to a file that defines these things, here we've got then I should see the username for the new account in the who's new block. At the definition level, I could change this to when, and I should be able to just run it again and get the same pass.
One note that he also made was specifically it seems that just saying and would have the same effect.
Yes, it would. So as far as Behat is concerned, it's just executing these things in the order it's told to execute them. The difference between given, when, and then is really conceptual for the people involved. So conceptually, the given step is what has happened before before we're really checking the thing in question. Like, where are we starting from? Just what's a given? And in this case, it's just a given that we're logged in, and it's just a given that there's already a new account. The when section is an action being taken. So we're an administrator, we should be doing some kind of action. In this case, the action is as simple as visiting the home page. The then section should be an observable result. So we're starting somewhere. We're starting from wherever the given says we're starting from. When is an action being taken, and then is an observable result of the action that was taken. But Behat, as a computer program, doesn't really care so much about that distinction. It's just going to run things in order, and it treats given, when, and then interchangeable. So I can even add like another given here, and Behat will just run it. I would confuse my coworkers because I'm going out of order here, but as far as Behat is concerned, it's just running these things in order. And at the definition level, this is you can do any of these, given, when, or then. And at this definition level, this is just indicating this is meant to be used as an observable result. You're more likely to see asserts in thens because thens are checking for some observable result. You're more likely to be asserting things in a then than you are to be asserting things in, say, a given, though any of these can assert things as well. I think under the hood, like visiting URLs asserts that the URL that you're visiting is a 200 response rather than like a 404. It just implicitly assumes that you're not expecting a 404 at the home page.
All right, moving on to the next question. Can I trigger my Behat test on a Pantheon environment? If so, can you give a quick overview of how that works?
Sure. So the tests that we've been running have been running against Pantheon sites. So jumping to this early diagram, there is a separation here between Behat as a command line program and these websites. So in what you've been seeing right now, Behat is just running on my local machine or Tessa's local machine. But the websites that we're interacting with are out on the internet. It's on pantheonsite.io. They could be on the same server. Like I could have a Drupal site on my local machine, and then both Behat and the Drupal site would be on my local machine, and the tests would run a little bit faster. But the examples that we have show, running tests against Pantheon environments. These composer repositories, example drops 8 composer, example WordPress composer on our GitHub pages, github.com/pantheonsystem/example WordPress composer. These show Behat tests running inside of continuous integration environments. So I'll jump back over to my personal copy here for showing Behat and Composer all together. This green checkbox at the end here is telling me that the tests pass when Behat was living inside of Circle CI. Circle CI is a continuous integration environment. Here we're seeing the same output that we saw from my local machine, but in this case, Behat was running inside of a Ubuntu machine out there in the cloud. So this Behat program, it could be on your local machine, it could be on the cloud somewhere in a CI environment like Travis or Circle CI. I think some people have tried to put Behat on Pantheon right next to the Pantheon site. I think there have been some errors with that. I don't recommend using it that way. The examples we have all show putting Behat inside of a CI environment.
To add to Steve's example here too, that's actually how I got started, or at least how I started looking at it, was through continuous integration. And it's really nice because you can really do a lot of like your beginning QA tasks to ensure that things are functioning correctly. And so that's when I was like, yeah, Steve, you have to teach me more. I need to know all of the things with Behat.
So yeah, if you are interested in getting started, I recommend looking at these example repositories. You can run this one command, and you'll get your own example copy. Like I have my example copy with D8 Composer Behat here. You'll get a repo on GitHub, you'll get Circle CI configuration, and you'll get a new Pantheon site. And then you can poke at Behat a little bit more inside of an already working CI setup.
Alrighty, going on to the next question. What is the reason for having the WordPress plugin? Is that just to pass context and functionality to Behat?
Yeah, the reason for it, and I'll go to its docs page here, wordhat.info. So what it's doing is giving you the ability to write steps that are specific to the specific to WordPress widgets, write steps specific to users. I don't have that pulled up on my local here, but I do have the Drupal one, and you can think of them very similarly. So I've run that same DL command showing me all the definitions that are available. And I'll see here that there are some Drupal-specific steps, like given I'm logged in as a user with a role, somewhere in here, running cron, the Drupal-specific cron, viewing nodes. You can just say, given I'm viewing an article with the title new article, and that will automatically create a new article for you. Similarly with the WordPress plugin, you can type similar commands and it'll check similar things. To see an example, too many tabs, let's just take a look at the WordPress tests that are in our example repository here that do leverage things. So we can say something like, given I go to menu item settings general. So WordHat has a way of understanding what that sentence fragment means in the context of WordPress. If we just told regular Behat this, it doesn't know exactly what we mean by menu items settings general. But WordHat is capable of taking this and understanding what we mean specific to WordPress. Atusa, any other questions?
Oh yeah, we have another one from, I believe, a Minneapolis local.
Yeah.
That is, speaking of speed, I'm playing with Behat and set up 273 steps. It was taking 35 minutes to run these 35 steps. Suddenly, last night, I ran all the tests in 3 minutes. Any ideas as to why, what must have been slowing down the process and why such a huge range in speed? I'm running the test on a local version of Drupal on my laptop.
All right, I will say that right before this webinar, I decided to cheat on my given I log in as an administrator step. I wrote a custom step to sign in as an administrator because the default one was so slow. What happens if I go back to what was happening by default? Let me take a look at my git diff. So I changed given I'm logged in as an administrator to given I log in as an administrator. So if I change it back, it's going to run slower. And the reason for that is that by default what the Drupal extension is going to do for me is create a brand new administrative user just for this scenario. And if it said again in the next scenario, given I logged in as an administrative user, it's going to make another brand new user just for that scenario. And that's time consuming to do. It's time consuming to connect to a remote server over SSH, call the drush command to make a new user, bring back the password, and then log in as that user. So it's a little bit slow to do that. So the way I got around that was I decided, for this demo, it's fine to just sign in as the same admin user over and over again. So I wrote a custom step here that's just visiting /user, and then using some global variables that I defined to sign in as an admin user over and over again. I wouldn't recommend that for every scenario. Like it is safer. It's a little purer as a test to be generating throwaway administrative users, but it's very time consuming. I think we'll find here that it'll make this just take a lot longer, and that may not be worthwhile. The example that Tessa was, something failed there. That example that we were showing with Tessa, the cleanup of comments was something that was happening pretty slow for the normal way of deleting comments over SSH. So that comment deleter that we saw, I was actually calling the WordPress REST API. So we've got where is it? This helper class comment deleter, just a quick and dirty way of calling the new WordPress REST API and deleting comments really, really fast. So one of the lessons for me from prepping for this webinar is that we should get a driver for WordHat through the REST API, because that's just going to be much faster than the WP CLI driver that interacts over SSH to do user creation, post creation, things like that.
All right, I'm going to grab one more question here. This was an @Steve. Do you have any recommended tools that we can use to automate Behat tests with a Pantheon workflow?
Yeah, so with these example repositories, it will just run. I'll point out some other implementation details that we have here. I think I'll find under this test directory, there's a helper script for running Behat, and we're exporting this variable called Behat parameters to do things like dynamically set the multi-dev name. Like on every pull request, we're making a new multi-dev, so the base URL we're testing against is changing with every pull request. So that's just something to be aware of. So in order to get this running locally, I'm setting these command line variables in my local with like export terminus site or export terminus env, and that's setting my local command line to use those variables, and then I can set this Behat params global variable as well. For what it's worth, I would like to get rid of the need for this helper script. I wouldn't be surprised if eventually there's a Pantheon extension for Behat, but that's not something we have immediately on the roadmap. But just occurs to me that we could get rid of the need for setting global variables like this with yet another extension.
Okay, I'm going to sneak one more in here just because I don't think we touched on it. If you're running these tests against Pantheon's multi-dev environments, how do you handle the changing multi-dev URLs?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that Tuesday is this variable that's changing the base URL with every pull request environment.
Awesome. In which case, looks like that's all we have time for today. Thank you all for watching, and Steve and Tessa for joining us today. If you have any questions or feedback, please visit our website where you'll find a contact us page, and we'll put you in touch with the best member of our team. And be sure to join us for our next edition of Couch Coding. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a great week.
Thanks, everyone.